of that. It's really hard. The reason I'm leaking is a couple of things. One is in speaking to John Gilliton when we talked about what this is going to look like for the period of when I'm here. One of our agreements was he didn't want to do God music. And to me, that's God music. I am not going to cry through this whole service, I don't think. I might, though, so be prepared. The other is the Seal song that he just sang, which I've heard him do before. Is a song for me that is one of my spiritual practices. I will pull it together, I promise. I might not. Bunny, can you cover for me? So the title of my commentary today is To Praise or Not to Praise. Of course, that's a take on the Shakespeare quote from Hamlet. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and by opposing them. I love this concept, to be or not to be, and as we know in metaphysics, the answer is to be, of course. But as Shakespeare wrote, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune or take arms against a sea of troubles. From a metaphysical perspective, we know that it's nobler, first and foremost, to not believe that the outrageous fortune of life comes with that slings and arrows. But in addition to that it is our role, once we become spiritually aware in life, is to truly oppose that which is a sea of trouble. So I ask you today, what is a sea of trouble in your life? We all have them. Is it something that you may or may not have manifested in form, whether that's money or cars or relationships or homes or whatever the case may be? Or might it be that you're not living your authentic self in the world, whereby that you know that you're bringing the best of who you are each and every day to the world? Or it may be that you're not giving yourself permission in the moment when emotions come up, like it just did for me, to feel those and to simply suppress them. Now, of course, right now I need to suppress them a little bit because I've got 22 minutes to give you information to hopefully stimulate you into an awareness of knowing who you are as a spiritual being on this planet. But the question is that as we maneuver our lives, are we here to praise or not to praise? Well, I believe it's to praise, of course. And so let's look at the concept of praise. And I love the concept of praise in the context both of living life in an everyday basis, but also in the context of what was just presented by Beth and Ryan through Kirtan and our band. And the concept of Kirtan, which is what he was presenting to us here, is to praise and adore. And so if you look at the definitions of praise, the one that I like of those three is to glorify God or source, I wrote in there, especially by attributes of perfection. Now, in traditional religions, we look at that from the perspective that the perfection that exists within God or source is something that is external, and we sit back and await for that power to present them to us or imbue them in us. In the teachings of New Thought, the science of mind, and metaphysics, we are taught to believe that those attributes of perfection exist within us already, and our responsibility, should we choose to become aware and enlightened about who we are as spiritual beings, is to have a practice by praising and adoring where we bring those from within out and then live them. So that we don't sit back and questioning in life as to whether or not that already exists, and are we going to have the opportunity to have the glory of God be glorified through us by God. It's the opposite of that. It's by living a life where we know already that we are that power, and it's our responsibility to glorify it by living in alignment with that which is inherently within us already. Yeah. Amen, here. Yes. And is that an easy thing to do? You guys, as we've now been together 3 Sundays, I believe it is, you'll know I'll ask you oftentimes, is that easy to do? And it just depends on the day whether that's easy to do or not. I was at a dinner party Friday night, and there was let's say someone there that was a challenge for me to see that the perfection existed, the attributes of perfection in that individual. Very much so. And I knew going into that dinner party that was going to be a challenge. And so I communicated with my friend the next day who was also there, and I shared with that individual that my spiritual practice throughout the dinner party, besides loading up on 2 scotches first so I could do the spiritual practice, was to constantly ask myself in that moment, can I look at this person that's driving me crazy and annoying the hell out of me and see that that's God fully expressed? And I walked away from that dinner party, which was a wonderful dinner party, by the way, and I believe that I did it 62.5% of the time, which I think is a good thing. I think it's better than the reverse, right? So, but how does that happen, and how do we live a life where we are able to consciously praise the divine? Well, I believe the first step to that is surrender. I believe that's one of the 12 steps, correct? Is it? It's to surrender. Well, what is it that we're to surrender to? Well, I think the first step in the process of surrendering is to understand that we are to yield to the power. Well, sometimes that sounds like a sucky process, don't you think? I don't always yield to the power. However, once we understand our role in the co-creative process of life, we understand that we are yielding to a power that is greater than us and that exists within the universe, but equally exists within us as well. So the yielding to something isn't turning it over to something that is not going to support us. In fact, it's something that the more and more that we align ourselves with what it is that is within us, the more and more that we get to experience that which it is, which we already know from other lessons here. They are the qualities of God of peace, power, beauty, light, life, love, joy, and wisdom. What we need to do in that process, should we desire to experience more of the adoration of the divine, which comes from within, is to do this, to train our mind to see the good in everything. To train our mind to see the good in everything. Now, knowing already, or if you don't and you're new to this center, good in this philosophy and teaching is a synonym for God, or source, or the divine, or the great power, or it, or as Holmes calls it, the thing itself. For you and I to live a more enlightened life, which is what I truly believe we're all here for, so that we're touched like I was in that moment, in a resonance field of feeling that I'm connected to that which is greater than I am, but I am equal to it. Therefore, I can experience and express more of it. The more and more I consciously attune myself with it, then I must take responsibility for my actions, and one of those is to train my mind to see the divine in everything. And the goal in that is to understand that our intention is for that 62.5% to be 63, and then 65, and then 68, and then be willing to forgive ourselves when it drops to 42. Because is that going to happen? Absolutely, that's going to happen, because that's the way life works. And to become aware in that process of understanding in a metaphysical new thought teaching that it's our responsibility daily to redefine for ourselves what the divine is. Now, I am moving too quick there. So, in the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes writes this, that I think is important for us to understand about we experience that in life relative to what our beliefs are. And he says, in the long run, nothing judges us but the immutable law of cause and effect. Whoever deserves punishment will receive it, and whoever merits reward will find that it is brought by the hand of the Almighty and delivered to him. Now, those seem very old school religious language for Ernest Holmes, but this is in the section of the book where he's taking parts of the Bible and reinterpreting them in metaphysical terms using some of the old language. So let me read it to you again so you understand. He's not sitting there pointing his finger with hellfire and damnation. He's processing information that has previously been presented in hellfire and damnation. He says, in the long run, nothing judges us but the immutable law of cause and effect. Now, it doesn't really judge us because it can't. It's impersonal. But he's using language so that we can understand that. He goes on to write, whoever deserves punishment will receive it, and whoever merits its reward will find that it is brought by the hand of the Almighty and delivered to him. Obviously, he, she, and every other pronoun. 54, right, Cynthia, at Facebook? 54 other pronouns. He goes on to write, there is a direct law responding to condemnation and a direct law responding to praise and appreciation. It's the same law used in different ways. What he's telling us there is that there is not a power outside of ourselves that will condemn us or praise us. It's an inside job. And that we experience life relative to condemnation or praise based on how we think about ourselves, based on the language that we use about ourselves, and based on our spiritual practices in life, whether they're conscious or not. Now, one of the great tools that I love in our teaching is called spiritual mind treatment. How many of you are familiar with it? How many of you use it? Well, if you want to use more of it, Treatment Learning Clinic, the last one's this Wednesday night, Congregation Kol Ami, on La Brea, I learned how to say that this week, and come check it out. You'll learn more about it. But here's what Ernest Holmes tells us about spiritual mind treatment. He said, the words I speak are the law of good, and they will produce the desired result because they are operated on by a power greater than I am. Good alone comes from me, and good alone returns to me. He's just telling us in a different way that for you and I to experience more and more of the qualities of life that are defined in the textbook as God, that what we need to be clear on are the words that we speak. And understand that the words that we speak comes to us as good if that's what we're speaking, and return to us as good. That's the law of cause and effect. Now, as you all know, I work with teenagers. I do run spiritual-based camps for the Centers for Spiritual Living across North America. And just recently we were together and we were working on developing our camps. And one of the things that we did in the process, and we do this every time that we're preparing to design a camp series, is we do a spiritual practice. First, we do this thing called current reality. And we sit in a circle and we pass out cards and stuff. And we do a current reality check where the answer is you say, my current reality is, and fill in the blank. So it could be my current reality is my grades are bad at school. My current reality is I just had my first relationship with my boyfriend. Get the blank, my current reality is. And what that does is it evens the consciousness playing field so that from there we all get to the same vibration so that we can then start developing the consciousness that we want, the energy field that we want, and we start moving deeper and deeper and deeper into this resonance field of our collective soul, so that when we get up the next morning and step into what our responsibility is to create the camp itself, we do it really efficiently. And within usually a 4 to 8 hour window that next morning, we've designed either a 5-day camp or an 8-day camp. Designed, completed, written, documented, set it up, and it's done. And then we're done. Now that would be considered a miracle by modern day standards and certainly old school standards. But why does that work? That's because we have a spiritual practice of setting the tone or the energy of that which we desire to experience, and then we use our words through that process. And why do we use our words? Because we're beings that use words for communication. And so we found this new tool called a Wordle. How many of you know about a Wordle? I figured about 5 of you. A Wordle. So a Wordle is you go to this app, right? You go to this app, you put all these words in, and then hit click if you've got the right software, which it took me a while to get that. And it pops up this. This is called a Wordle. It's pretty cool, don't you think? Now, many of you may think that's just a bunch of words on a screen, right? It is, but it's also known as a Wordle. So this is the Wordle that we used for our recent planning of our teen camps. And if you look at these words, they have meaning both to us individually, but they also have meaning to these teenagers because those are the qualities that they want to experience in creating the camp that they have so that when they leave the camp, they've experienced this at a deeper level. And the words up here are love, understanding, inspiration, connection, empowerment, family, peace, bliss, leadership, laughter, empathy, discomfort, vulnerability, empowerment, power, openness, acceptance. Those are all good qualities to live in life, right? Those are all good qualities to live in life, right? Right. Right, that's good. So the reason I'm sharing that with you today is so that you and I can have a reminder today that as we move forward in our lives in the next 7 days, or whenever we all come together again, which might be Wednesday night, that we become more consciously aware of the words that we use in our lives, and hopefully have used the power of intention to praise the power of the divine that exists within us as we use those words. Now, for some of us, words may not necessarily work for us, right? And what we may also wonder is that if I use the words love, peace, power, family, connection, empowerment, am I going to have a better life? Yeah, at some point. But so many of us get caught up in the teachings of the science of mind thinking that it's an exact science. It isn't an exact science. Why is it that if we use the words power, peace, love, beauty, joy, family, acceptance, empowerment, bliss, laughter daily for the next 7 days, that our lives may not reflect that? That's because we may not know what exists in our minds prior to the week. But the thing that we know in our teaching is that it doesn't matter how often we use these words, how often we do spiritual mind treatment. What matters is the tool itself will bring to us a different experience if we're willing to step into that experience of spiritual practice and continue to do it until we have a different result. This is what Joel Goldsmith in The Art of Spiritual Healing writes regarding this. Your world is embodied in your consciousness. It reflects the state of your consciousness because your consciousness governs your world. Your awareness of truth is the law unto your world, but on the other hand, your ignorance of truth likewise becomes a law unto it. What is he telling us there? He's telling us that what we need to do is become aware of our consciousness. The consciousness is the sum total of everything that has taken place in our individual minds, as well as the collective of mind itself. That's a big idea, by the way. But that's the sum total. That's how we come up with consciousness itself. And that we can see what's going on in our consciousness by doing what? By looking at what's going on in our world. By looking at what's going on in our world and without judgment or attachment, look at it and say, do I like what's going on in my world? Do I like that? And if you do, praise it, high five. And if you don't get attached to that from the perspective of feeling that you are less than or haven't done your work. Literally, physically, and metaphorically, take a step back, choose new words, ideas, and beliefs, and start again. And if you use that alone as a spiritual practice and by potentially just praising the power of the divine that exists within you already, then your life will begin to change. It's important for us to understand that our words reflect our thoughts. Our thoughts typically reflect our words, which then create our beliefs. Our beliefs then move into that which is called our consciousness, and then the law of life shows up in our life as the effect itself. There's a great statement that Oprah used to use all the time that Maya Angelou told her is that when you know better, you do better. And that's cool. But I also think you can reverse it. When you do better, you will know better. Why? Because it's all one activity just acting upon itself all the time. And it's important for you and I to understand, and we talked about this in the class the other night, that the effect of the cause and effect system works. And it's important for us to look at the effects, to see what's going on in our lives, to not get caught up just in cause, but also not get caught up in the concept of effect. One of my buddies in this teaching does a workshop called The Dance of the Beloved. And it's an experience. Has anyone in here ever done it at Asilomar? It's a pretty cool experience. It's literally a physical dance with expressions of spirit, with the understanding that the more that you dance with these individuals, with music playing in the background, more and more that we are separating that which we know as humanity, and all that we're dancing with is the beloved itself. In other words, we are dancing with the divine, or expressions of God, which are you and I. But the question is, why must we put ourselves in a room to do that? Why can't we let that be our spiritual practice in an everyday aspect of life? Why can't we all, and we can if we choose to do it, walk outside the doors of the Harmony Gold Theater onto Sunset Boulevard? And as we continue to move about our everyday life, no matter where it is on this planet, do so in a way whereby we are dancing with the beloved. And so that everything that we meet and greet in front of us, we can say to ourselves, that's the divine I'm dancing with. And not get attached as to whether or not it chooses to dance with you. Just dance with it. And keep moving. Obviously, that's a metaphor. But keep moving until you find that dance partner that feels really good. And continue dancing with that partner till that no longer feels good. And then move to the next one. Understanding that that is a metaphor for the action of life. That's the way life works, is life isn't sedentary. Life is about movement, and it is infinite in its nature. And so I love this graph here or this photo because I think it speaks to what an enlightened being looks like. And if you're one of these individuals where words may not be the sole way that you like to commune with the divine, then use music. Use dance. Find a way that works for you. My friend that I was communicating with yesterday morning after the dinner party, I was sharing with her that I was listening to this song over and over and over and over on this loop in preparing for my talk today. And the title of the song was I Am Holy. But those weren't the words that were being used. Could hardly even distinguish the words themselves. But the energy itself of the song was clearly building into this small crescendo, but yet a crescendo of sparking something within me to know that the vibrations of it was taking me to a place of enlightenment. So I know for you today, and I know the same for me, that we're here because what it is that we seek is to have a life that is filled more with peace and with tranquility, with transformation and with understanding of who and what we are as spiritual beings, and that we want to do that in a really fun, vibrant, interactive way. Is that true for you? Do you want to have a week ahead where you stop at a moment and go, oh my God, my spiritual healing has blown my mind? You didn't laugh very hard at that, and I'm not looking for the laughter. I really want you to take a moment and say, do you want to put into your mind the thoughts and beliefs that become your consciousness, that you trust that as you're maneuvering in your life for the 7 days that are ahead of you, that the moment will come when you're going to go, oh my God, my mind is blown. This stuff works. You want to do that? Well, let's take that on as a challenge, because what I know is that in a modern day way is truly the concept of praising the divine. It's not by just sitting back and dropping to your knees and oming and amen. Is that a good thing to do? Sometimes, if it works for you. But for me, I like it to be a more high vibrational process. I'm a high vibrational being every now and then. That might surprise you guys. But I'm a high vibrational being. And one of the things that I really like in my life is to have my mind blown relative to what I believe the power of God to be. And one of the things I love more than anything is when it shows up, like it did, sitting right over there just a moment ago. It reminds me that the only thing that really, really, really ever matters in life is being connected to that which I'm connected to, and then consciously and purposefully and intentionally sharing it with that which is in front of me, and being ever so grateful that the universe will take it and do its thing, which is magical and miraculous, and then bring it back to me, so that I can feel that vibrational feeling of transformation again, so that I can then give it back to the universe, and it can do its thing, and bring it back to me, and I can stay in that infinite flow of the dance of the beloved. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that with you today. I hope that you've had the same or personal experience that has raised your vibrational frequency, so that when you walk out of here today, you know more than you've ever known before that the power of God, no matter what you call it, exists. It exists by means of you and by means of me. And that I know for each and every one of us that we're moving beyond the walls of this place today and stepping into a conscious field of resonance and action in the city of Los Angeles, whereby we're making a difference, and we're doing it proudly, we're doing it grandly, and we're doing it with love. Have a great week. Thank you.